Hey guys, how's it going? It's Mr. McComb on Tuesday, May 26th. Hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend and ready to get into your week today. Hopefully today, Tuesday, you're finishing up some things. Virtual field day coming up later this week. Hopefully you had a good weekend with some warm weather. We had some storms too, which I'm going to share some stuff about later. It was Memorial Day yesterday, which I know typically that's a big travel day for a lot of us. Normally I'd have been up at our little lake place, which I've talked about a couple times, and we didn't get to do that, but we had some nice weather. I'm actually wearing my Abraham Lincoln shirt. So Memorial Day is sort of an American holiday. I like to wear this on those warm summer holidays, and this is kind of a start to our summer, even though we've got a couple of days technically left of school, but I'm sure for most of you, you're just kind of wrapping some things up, maybe catching up on little things here and there, and hopefully just waiting for that field day and the end of the year kind of stuff. So we got report cards coming out Friday. A couple other things. You're not going to hear a whole lot from me this week other than these little videos I'm putting together. So I'm going to try to do at least a couple more after this one. So I give you something to check out and see, and stay in touch a little bit here. We are going to get into it now today, though. So today is May 26th, and we're going to get into our sharing time here as we get into our last week of school, okay? First of all, music today is called The Raconteurs. This guy right here is Jack White, who's maybe a singer you've heard of from some other bands in his solo career. They've become a pretty big band recently. One I like to listen to quite a bit as well. I've been sharing things I like to listen to because it's my video, so that's what you get. Anyway, this is called The Raconteurs. They're a good band. All right, so we're getting into it. Let's get started. Poll question today has to do with video chats. I thought this was a cute little picture I could put in with little grandkids talking to their grandparents on a video chat. Hopefully some of you are doing that. Grandparents are good ones to stay in touch with at this time too, since they're some of our more at-risk people for this virus, and good to take care of them, but also good to stay in touch. So once again, some interesting results, some split results. I had the question is, how often do you video chat with family members you don't live with? So I think now as things are easing up a little bit, we're getting a little bit more back to normal. You might be out and about, maybe getting to visit a little bit more often. Last Saturday was my wife's birthday, and my parents came down. Her parents live a little too far away up at the lake I've talked about, but they're about a 4-hour drive, so it wasn't really far enough for them to, or it was a little too far for them to just come visit. But we did a little backyard visit, which was nice. We just stayed outside and kept our distance a little bit, but it was also good to see each other. So before that, we'd been doing once a week video chats on Google Duo with my family, my brother and sister, and so a few people getting on that, which is cool. Looks like a lot of us are doing that about once a week, so that's kind of where we are or where we were. And even though we might get a chance to see each other a little more often now, things are maybe not quite as scary as they had been. Other ones almost every day, quite a few, and 2-3 times a week, so that's great. A few of us said never. Hopefully that's just maybe there's not enough people that you need to keep in touch with, and some of us have smaller families, and that's cool. But if you're one of those that maybe think, hey, I should probably try to reach out to one of my relatives I don't get to see too often, I'm sure they'd like that. So anyway, once again, another interesting poll question. Simple question, but lots of different answers depending on kind of where we're at. Okay. All right, let's keep it going now. Funny 5-second nature video. I've kind of again made these GIFs lately, so I just found a few for today. Here's a lion. This reminds me of just like a house cat that's trying to stay out of the water. I think somehow he got stuck between. He's trying to like jump off back and not get wet, but and then he just does. And look at him, he looks like a sad little kitty. Anyway, just kind of an interesting one. I thought that one was funny. Here's a tiger. Oh, big mean tiger, and he gets scared by a little bird. You see the bird flying, just kind of dive bomb him. Not so tough guy. Anyway, sometimes you see that. Here's another one too with bears and a cat. And just scaring that bear away. I guess it's all about attitude, right? This cat comes at him kind of aggressively and says, "Get out of my backyard." So there he goes. Okay. So there's the lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. All right. Interview question of the day is having to do with some reading we're doing. I thought this was a funny little comic strip about reading online and go outside. No, now there's a bit. So the question is, what books have you read other than Hatchet? I know Hatchet was your guys' big reading project you started. I'm actually going to show you one I've been reading. It's actually like a short story. It's not too much of an exciting cover, but it's a book created by Alfred Hitchcock called Alfred Hitchcock's Stories Not for the Nervous. It's actually a collection of like short stories and some what are called novellas, which are like small little few chapters of the book. So it's not a super thick book, but it's full of like 30 or 40 short stories And if you know Alfred Hitchcock, he was a pretty well-known director of movies back in like the 1950s and 60s. Movies like Psycho and The Birds, things like that. Kind of a thriller or scary movie kind of guy. He was pretty famous back in the day. And so this is a collection of short stories called Stories Not for the Nervous, meaning like, hey, they're a little bit scary. I've actually read quite a few, and they're kind of my style because they're shorter. I'm not really one to sit and read all day long. My wife would definitely do that, but I'm more of a read for a short little bit, and then I got to get the move. So there are a few in here that are actually pretty scary, pretty like ones where I had to like go ahead and turn on the lights after I got to reading it, where he's usually known for like twists at the end and like little things that give you chills like that. So that's been kind of my little reading I've done. Again, it's an old classic book. I think it was published in like 1955 or something like that. But anyway, that's what I've kind of been reading here and there when I can. Let's go ahead and get into the things that some of you all have been reading. Lots of neat titles in here. I can definitely tell some themes going on that we can see. So what do we got? It says Avery's reading one about Kobe Bryant. Definitely a poignant one. Definitely relevant right now. Vincent Fazemeyer, Resurrection. Jackson's read the Trials of Apollo series. It's 4 books long and good. Yeah, series we saw a lot of here. This is a great time to be reading series or watching movie series, like whatever you might be doing. We've got the time to do it. So Isaac's got Soldier Dog, No Better Friend, and The Unwanteds. Rachel, The Hunger Games trilogy, another series. Okay. Molly Dornhagen, Three Musketeers. Good. Part of Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson, another very good series that you might get into if you like the first one. Allie Spiller's read quite a few. It's the Unwanted books, Unwanted Quest series, and also Mage Runner. Read a total of 12 books so far. So it was a couple weeks ago that we made that survey, so you maybe have read several more in this time, Allie. So big reader there. Okay. Nolan's read A Monster Calls and The Lost Hero. Good. Maya Diedrich's The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay. So the trilogy there. Eli, Space and Weather books. Cool, man. I know Eli's into science stuff. I'm going to talk about weather a little bit as part of my show and tell coming up here in a second. Let's see if we can keep going. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Collins read Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Good. Anthony's Wimpy Kid, and also Small Step. And okay, other than Hatchet, good. Right, so read Hatchet, good. Jacob read The Unwanteds, another series, and a book called Gone Wild. Jack Bonner, Bench Warmers and Wimpy Kid. John Brody, The Book Thief. Liam has been reading Harry Potter, good, and some other books as well. Definitely a good time for Harry Potter. Got a lot of time to kind of do those things. Lola's read The Wish Stealers, Turtle in Paradise, and Wildfire. Mitch has read The New Dogman, Last Kids on Earth. My kids have been watching a Netflix series about that. I think they took the Last Kids on Earth books and turned them into a animated series, which has been fun. What else? Michael Jordan, The Life. Good. Sports one. Good. Josie Subtle has been reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Good. Lauren Cantrell, Max Crumbly, and she started reading Warriors. Grace Tierney, Harry Potter and the Hobbit. Good. Another good big books. Good. Rosie, Dork Diaries and Big Nate. Kennedy, Lizzie Legend. Isaac's read the Super Bowl book and the Big Book of Boy Stuff. That sounds fun. My parents got me when I was probably a little older than you guys are now, but when it first came out, there was a book called The Dangerous Book for Boys, which is all about how you can build slingshots and make all kinds of things like that, and just things that all boys should know about the world and how to do things and build stuff. So it's pretty neat. So that probably sounds like a little bit similar. Jack Dunn, The Genius Files, good. Vince Emmerich, Big Nate. Molly has read the Twilight series, the Royal Diaries, and a Who Was book every day because she's in the National Bee. I did hear that. That was actually a great accomplishment. I think Molly was one of 10 people in all the nation that made it to the Who Was Bee, National Bee. But it did, unfortunately, due to the coronavirus stuff going on, they had to kind of cancel the actual bee. And I think everybody was declared a winner and won a scholarship. So we'll take it. That's great. Wonderful accomplishment, Molly. So good job, and keep reading those Who Was books. Lily Tierney, Hunger Games and Trials of Apollo series. Good. Will Tiefenbach, The River and Brian's Winter. Bailey's read The Big Field and Heavy Hitter. Sounds like a couple sports books. Cool. Sophia, quite a few on here. The Ungifted, Tale of Emily Winsnap, the Phoebe and Her Unicorn series, Who Was series, Dork Diaries, Smile books, The Babysitter's Club. Oh, that's a classic one. And Meg, Joe, Beth, and Amy. Okay, lots of books that Sophia's been reading. Very cool, very good. Lily Von Holly has read So This Is Love and The Unwanted. I've seen The Unwanteds pop up a couple times. I'll have to check that out. Kellen, book called The Doldrums, Max Hamilton, Small Steps. Josie Mayfield and her sister are reading a series called Amulet. That sounds cool too. Madison, Max Einstein Rules with a Cause That's Deadly in Bedtime Stories. Pretty cool. Finn has read My Life as a Meme and iFunny. Annie's been reading The Hunger Games. I see that one popping up too. Nathan has been reading the middle school series. And Sebastian, another Diary of a Wimpy Kid fan reader. Good. All right, here's my daughter Sophia. She's in the picture now. Do you see yourself? Can you wave? She doesn't want to wave. Do you want to sit on my lap? No, she doesn't want to sit on my lap. So just stand right there awkwardly. Okay, and finally, all right, let's go to the show and tell. Lily Von Holly sent this picture in for Cal Patrick. I love it. I know Lily's been out on the farm. A great place to be during this time, getting outside and doing some chores and enjoying nature and also farm life. Patrick here looks like he's not too happy to be having his picture taken. That's a great picture. Thanks for sending that in, Lily. Very cool. All right, so my show and tell this week has to do with some of the weather stuff we've been experiencing. Like I mentioned, on Saturday was my wife's birthday. We had a nice little backyard picnic, and my kids were playing in our little mini pool we have, and my grandparents were over, and we were having lots of fun. And oh, she was playing her mermaid game. When they were in the pool, they played a mermaid. But anyway, so after that, the rains came. It got to be a really strong storm kind of all of a sudden. And I looked on the radar. It was only our area around Anderson really quickly where that happened, where we had that weather going on. But as a result of that, it was interesting. I'm actually going to tie in a little bit of science here with the hail that happened. So this is actually a picture of some mulch areas in my front yard where we have like some hostas and a tree. And these little specks you see aren't like salt or anything. It's hail that came down. I'm going to talk about kind of how that formed. And actually, this is some pretty wild hail as the storm got to be pretty violent. Here is a picture. I just picked up some of the hail. And these are chunks of ice that fall down just like rain. But they form ice. Now, usually hail this might be a decent sized piece of hail, but I found these pieces that have like this one looks like almost like a spider with all these little bits of ice coming off of it. And I thought that would be a neat thing to share, and not just to share, but also talk about how that happens. So we know rain comes down from the evaporation and the water cycle process, and precipitation as the rain comes down. Now, when we have a violent storm with lots of wind, this is a little graphic I found, simple thing to show about how that happens. So usually what happens is rain will fall down, and then that just hits the ground and we get our wet rain, which is good for plants to grow and for photosynthesis and things like that. But what can happen with hail, when hail forms, basically those raindrops get blown back up into the cloud, and this thing called an updraft. So we had if you noticed the storm that happened Saturday, it was pretty short, maybe only lasted less than an hour, but it was really heavy rain and really windy and a lot of damage from that, which I'll talk about in a second. And part of that, the hail falls down because basically these water droplets get blown back up into the cloud, and up above, once it gets high enough, it gets into a freezing level and it freezes into ice. And so that wind is blowing it up, and so the wind is so strong, even the chunks of ice get blown up into the air and higher up into the cloud, and they collect more and more droplets of water. So instead of just being drops of rain coming down, the hail collects, and it's like it builds on top, kind of like making a snowball, packing a snowball in tight. More and more snow builds up. Here what happens is more and more ice builds up, and eventually it gets heavy enough that it can fall. But usually when we see this hail happen is when the rain and the wind is so strong that the winds carry that water back up into the sky where it freezes and builds up. And once it gets heavy enough, basically heavy enough that it's too strong for even the strong winds to handle, you see that hail come down. So that's what we've got going on here. So as a result of that, also the heavy winds and strong power of the energy of the wind can cause some damage. And some of you might have experienced power outages or branches and trees falling down. This is actually from my wife's grandmother's yard. This is actually not her yard, but the neighbor's, and this tree fell. You can see, if you look closer, the trunk here, it ran all the way along this whole way and caused some pretty bad damage to her power line, and took out, this is the neighbor's fence, but pretty much caused some tough damage. So we went over there, helped her pick up some branches because she's pretty old, and so she's about 85. And so we had a good little time on our Sunday picking those things up. So I just wanted to share that as well. This is my daughter's hat on my head. That is silly. And so we had a good little time Sunday afternoon picking up, helping out. So doing some good work there. I hope you guys are doing the same thing. That's the end of our video. I'll send out another one later on this week. You guys enjoy. Bye.